Pegasus recap and looking ahead to the Holy Bull card. Let's talk horse racing on the Win Place Show. Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis. You can find me on Twitter at the handle at Failed to Menace. And this is the Win Place Show, a video program devoted to all aspects of horse racing and handicapping that is proudly part of the Trust the Profits YouTube channel. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder to make sure to like the video, subscribe to Trust the Profits on YouTube. We have so much great coverage. We have so much Derby prep information. Colin Sheehan always dropping Derby prep news, doubling down every week. We have the lounge on Thursday nights. I'll be joined by Ashley Maylou this week from FanDuel to cap the card of the Holy Bull. We go through all 13 races on the card, give you my top pick and value play. Ashley's going to be joining along. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also, we're going to have Santa Anita Stakes previews. The formula's got all sorts of graded stakes previews out there as well. We got Derby top 25 lists. We got so much content. So if you love horse racing, if you really want to get invested in the Triple Crown, if you want to know more than all your friends sitting around the TV on the first weekend in May, the best way to do it is subscribe to Trust the Profits. Now, make sure to follow me on Twitter as well at the handle at Failed to Menace to get all of my updated information and all my value plays and picks that I give out throughout the week. So make sure to do that. But with all that being said, let's dive into a huge last weekend in horse racing. Obviously, it was Pegasus Day, and that's where we're going to start recapping that. And really, one of the big recaps, I think, from Pegasus Day, going into it, we were talking about maybe the big day for Saffie Joseph Jr. That didn't happen. That didn't materialize. Maybe a big day for Bob Baffert. It was kind of a big day for Bob Baffert. We'll talk about that a little bit. Really big day for Mike Maker. Wow. Mike Maker, the trainer with 3 stakes winners on the Pegasus card, Red Knight endorsed, as well as your Pegasus Turf champion, Atone, a horse that I absolutely love. And if you watch my capping the card, he was my top value play in that race. Couldn't believe he got bet down from 12-1 to 7-2. A lot of other people liked Atone as well. I knew he'd take on some money. I didn't think he'd take on that much, but a huge day for Mike Maker. That barn really, really firing there on the big day down at Gulfstream Park. But let's walk through some of these races. Obviously, personal best winning the La Prevoyante. That was a race where, the adventuring, the heavy morning line favorite was coming off a little bit of a layoff. Personal best. Always had a feeling that horse was in a better spot, was progressing and was a little bit more active. Adventuring, going to probably need one off the bench. So a nice effort there for personal best. What was, I think, one of the more interesting results was from the inside information stakes. Now, listen, if you watched again, capping the card, you know that I was fading Obligatory. Still, Obligatory was a strong favorite in that race. Really did not fire at all. Obligatory came up really empty and did not run a very good race at all. Mary Quite Contrary gets the win. And that's a horse that has just been burning up at Gulfstream Park. Now 6 wins in 7 career races, all at Gulfstream Park, but has been stepping up consistently in class. Now has a grade 2 win under her belt. So I'm excited to see where Mary Quite Contrary goes next. Probably going to stay down at Gulfstream for a few more sprints, but interested if this is a filly that kind of gets moved around the country a little bit this coming year. Maybe she goes up to Saratoga over the summer. Maybe she goes to some other big races on the East Coast. But really interesting to see her down there in Gulfstream Park, really tearing things up. Always love to see that. Now, in the WL McKnight Stakes, the big marathon, obviously Red Knight, I mentioned already, the Mike Maker horse gets the win. Value Engineering, my top pick, gets the place, gets the second place position. But this was one where I had told you going into that race, I did not trust any of the favorites, and indeed none of the favorites showed up. Channel Maker, Aubon, Temple, nowhere to be found in the leaderboard. So Red Knight gets the win. This is a horse that gets the win at a big price a lot. And so Red Knight gets the win. Value Engineering at a big price as well. It gets to place. I think played $10 to place, which is really high. So that was good value if you were able to get Value Engineering even underneath a little bit, make a little bit of money right there. Obviously, like I said, a tone really showing a lot of ability there in the Pegasus World Cup turf. So impressed by that. Really impressed by Atone's versatility. This is a horse that can sit, that can come off from the lead, sat just off the lead, and the kind of was never too far behind. And that was one of the points that we tried to make on this show, on others. If you watched, you need to be near the lead in turf races at Pegasus or at Gulfstream Park, I should say. You don't need to be on the lead, but you can't be that far off of it. And the fact that a horse is like a Tone and Lady Spear and some of these others sat close to the lead, that's good enough. You can sit stalking trips, that's fine. You can sit in a big field of 13, 14 horses. You can sit fourth, fifth, sixth, as long as you're, 3 lengths, 4 lengths back, that's okay. It's when you start getting 8, 9, 10 lengths back, that's when it really starts becoming problematic. But huge effort there from a Tone, obviously, to get the win. And I have to feel good. This is a horse that I just really love and has always shown up on big days, always, I think, run really well, always runs really honest, rarely turns in a bad effort, and for him to really break through. And, listening to Maker's assistant trainer talk after the race about how this horse seems to have something seems to have clicked with the Tone. Something seems to have turned on with him over the last just maybe few months. That's one of those things as they get a little bit older on the turf, they can start to do that. So love to see that for a Tone. Art Collector, of course, we don't want to bury the lead. The Pegasus World Cup, Art Collector wins. What an effort. What an effort for Art Collector and what may very well be his final race. And could not be happier for the connections for Bill Mott. And it was just such a wonderful effort. And if you watched my very first early look at the Pegasus, I even called out, I said, Art Collector's that's where the value is. That's where the value is, Art Collector. Now, like a dope, I didn't listen to my own advice. And throughout the week, I changed my mind and I ended up supporting Defunded. Now, that's not a bad pick. He finished second. But Art Collector, what makes this race so special for Art Collector is it's the first time since November of 2020, the first time since November of 2020 that he has won a race when sitting third or worse at second call. I mean, this was the concern that I had with Art Collector was I knew he wasn't going to get the lead. He wasn't fast enough. He wasn't quick enough to get to the lead. I knew that was going to happen. And by the way, Mike Smith on Stiletto Boy looked like they were running a 5 furlong sprint the way they got out there and onto the lead really fast. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more in a second. But Art Collector, I knew was going to have to sit. And when you look through at past performances, he just didn't really show a lot there. And he didn't show this ability to come from off the lead recently, that when he got behind early, he stayed behind. And his last time out wasn't great, but I was willing to kind of toss that a little bit to go, okay, that's it. Last time out wasn't great, but I can live with that. This is a horse I've seen win the Charlestown Classic twice. I'm always a sucker, as many of you know, for supporting horses that I've seen run in person and run well in person. But what Art Collector managed to do was just sit off that speed and then just launch by. And this was by far and away his best career effort ever. Highest speed figures he's ever earned in his career, biggest win in his career. Again, huge congratulations to Bill Mott, who is just one of the more classy people that's out there, I think. And just so happy for Art Collector and all the connections to win this. Ultimately, Defunded comes in second. Stiletto Boy comes in third. I got to give all the credit in the world to Mike Smith. Second year in a row, Stiletto Boy finishes third at the Pegasus World Cup. But Mike Smith gave that horse the exact ride he needed to get. And he held on for third. And honestly, that was about the ceiling I had for Stiletto Boy. And he reached that ceiling. So I think Mike Smith gave him just the ride he needed to give. He didn't screw around. He got out of the gate. He knew he needed to get to the lead. He got to the lead. And that front end speed holds on okay. And because you didn't see many people closing from the back of the pack. Nobody was making a run, really. I mean, Art Collector went by people, but nobody else was really running. Defunded was kind of sitting near Art Collector that whole time. So the two of them go 1-2, Stiletto Boy finishing third. Disappointing effort, obviously, for Cyberknife, finishing a little further back. Very disappointing effort for White Barrio, for one of my favorite horses, Simplification. I think it also just shows you, I'll be honest, I'll maybe editorialize here a little bit. I just think it shows you it shows you who Cyberknife is. Cyberknife is a fine horse, but when people were talking about he should get 3-year-old of the year or nonsense. I mean, he's a perfectly fine horse. He's got some good credentials. That Arkansas Derby is not really that great of a race. Um, that was one of the grade ones. The other was the Haskell that really, I mean, Taba's come back really strong. Jack Christopher's retired. But outside of that, there's not been much else in that field. And that was, he kind of lucked up the rail there. And you never luck into a grade one. You have to have a lot of talent. But, Cyberknife, I didn't understand people supporting him from that far 10th post, getting bet way down. And then White Abario, again, he is what he is. And I just don't think he's that good in this company. I just wish him and Simplification would kind of do the same thing, which is go run in a bunch of grade 3 listed stakes races down at Gulfstream Park. That's their ceiling. That's what they're good at. And they're not great at grade 1 races. And so I hope that's just one of the big takeaways I have. The other takeaway is we're losing our collector because this is probably going to be his final race. We've lost Cyberknife. Now, thankfully, Charge It, the very precocious Todd Pletcher horse, who was super green, if you remember, in last year's Florida Derby, that's a horse that is back in training and will be back in action on Sunday in an allowance race at Gulfstream Park. He is right now what we're hanging on hope to, because there's really not much else in this handicap division. And that's a little disappointing. And I think the Pegasus field demonstrated that. And then the fact that the winner is going to go on and retire is even that much more disappointing. But obviously, there was action well beyond Pegasus on Saturday, Oaklawn Park in the slop. The rain came to Arkansas and Hot Springs, and it came down in a hurry. King Cotton Stakes with the return of Gunite. Man, was that impressive. Gunite looking, I would arguably, the best he's ever looked in his career off the layoff. And remember, the last time he ran was that Breeders' Cup Mile. Came back, running 6 furlongs, looked great. I saw Craig Milkowski of Time Form said that sort of effort makes you think Gunite could have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I mean, it's possible. I mean, Gunite really looked the part. Looks like he's one of our top sprinters now. And I was always a little bit cautious with Gunite about the 6 furlongs. He felt like he was a 7 furlong creature, really liked that 7 furlongs, maybe even a 1-turn mile. But to come out and to run that dominantly at the 6 furlong distance, really impressive. Tejano Twist made a great run. If you watch that race, he made a great move. It was almost a middle move. And he just kind of decided we're going to go, made up a ton of ground, flattened out late, but really lapped the field and did, with the exception of Gunite, did a great job coming in underneath. Tejano Twist, a horse I always like, always a sucker for closers and sprints for some reason. That's just my problem. The other big race, obviously, at Oaklawn Park was the Southwest Stakes. Kentucky Derby prep race won by Bob Baffert's Arabian Night. Not to be confused with Arabian Lion, who is entered in this weekend's Robert S. Lewis Stakes out at Santa Anita. But Arabian Night broke beautifully, got to the lead in the slop, and it was too easy. It was too easy. Just pulled away, made it look easy, and just so impressive. This is a horse's only second career effort after breaking his maiden at 7 furlongs at the Breeders' Cup Undercard at Keeneland. Now returns and wins this Southwest Stakes, grade 3, Derby prep points. Obviously will not earn any points because he's still trained by Bob Baffert, but still, the second place horse in this race, Red Route 1, a gun runner. Again, if you watched my Oaklawn preview, both myself and my guest, Jeff Besa, we both gave out Red Route 1 as the most likely horse to finish underneath, came running late. And here's the thing about gun runners. They love the slop. Gun runner progeny win in muddy conditions, wet conditions, 25% of the time. This is a horse that absolutely loves the mud. And what's interesting is Red Route 1's half sibling broke his maiden in muddy, sloppy conditions. So he's got it from his dad's side and his mom's side. So if the Kentucky Derby's in the slop and Red Route 1's in the starting gate, he might be a horse you might want to consider. But like I said, great effort there coming from off the pace. I don't love that running style necessarily on the Derby trail. I think you could get away with it in some of these early races. Obviously, the slop has a huge impact. Interestingly enough, the Brad Cox horses, Corona Bolt, Jace's Road, didn't really fire. Corona Bolt doesn't look like that horse wants any part of 2 turns. It's probably just going to be a 1 turn sprinter. And then Jace's Road, I'm just willing to chalk that up to this horse doesn't like slop. Only other bad performance in the horse's career was in the slop as well. Horse just doesn't like that surface, I don't think. So I'm willing to give Jace's Road another shot, but certainly a little bit of a dent in Brad Cox's Derby fleet that he has. Now, he's still got plenty of really good ones. He's still got Giant Mischief. He's still got Victory Formation. He's still got a lot of great horses. No doubt about that. But a little bit of a dent in some of those horses. We're going to see Hit Show, his other horse that scratched from the Southwest, actually be running in the Withers this coming weekend up at Aqueduct. Now let's go out to California for Sunday's San Vicente Stakes. And this showed a kind of 4-horse field with 3 of them being Bob Baffert horses. And the top 2 are really the ones that you want to talk about, Having a Meltdown and Faustin. Having a Meltdown winning the grade 2 San Vicente over Faustin. Here's the thing. Having a Meltdown is, in my opinion, a pure sprint horse. This is, Baffert mentioned with regards to Arabian Night, he likes to have horses go short twice and then stretch out. This is now Having a Meltdown's 5th sprint race. I don't think we're going to see Having a Meltdown get stretched out at all. Having a Meltdown is a sprint horse. Faustin, on the other hand, is a Derby horse. And when you watch him run, it's just so obvious that this horse wants more and more ground. And he doesn't get out that fast from the gate. He's a grinder. I mean, I thought Ramon Vasquez did as good a job on him as you can. He gave him a very aggressive workup to try to get him be a little quicker early on. Helped a little bit. He broke a little bit better than he did in his maiden, but still not great. And he's just not a super fast horse out of the gate, but he just grinds away. I think he's going to like every part of 2 turns. So I'm looking forward to where he goes next, probably the San Felipe, but looking forward to where Faustin goes next, because I think you give this horse 2 turns. That's what you're going to see, the best version of that horse. Now, there's also some big races, obviously, in Texas, believe it or not. I joked last week about finding Zapruder film of the Houston Ladies Classic, and I didn't have to rely on Zapruder film. I got our good friend Nick tomorrow, who does the morning line and does the work down there at Sam Houston. But Nick posted some of the videos, and Pauline's Pearl gets back in the winner's circle, wins that Houston Ladies Classic, beats Hidden Connection, comes from off the pace. Again, a really nice race, 63 caliber, finishing 4th in that race. So definitely a good one, but just sad that a lot of us can't enjoy that race because of everything that's going on between HISA and Texas. And just, it's very, very unfortunate. It only hurts the horses, hurts the horse people in Texas, because they're seeing a decline in revenue. They're going to see a decline in purses over time. It's really gutting the sport down there, and it's too bad to see. Now, there were some non-stakes races that I thought kind of were surprising to me. And one of those, both came on Sunday. One was at Gulfstream Park, one was at Aqueduct. But it's interesting, this year we've not had a ton of great fillies. We've not had a ton of great, last year we had so many with Secret Oath, with Nest, with Echo Zulu, with Kathleen O. We had so many great young fillies on the Oaks Trail. And this year we just haven't really had it. Well, folks, they're starting to kick in. And maybe they were just a little late developing. But I got a name for you. Bandita. She's a gun runner for Todd Pletcher. She's the best filly I saw this weekend. And she ended up posting a 91 buyer speed figure, earning that in debut, breaking her maiden, and just looking so good. Irad, who rode for Pletcher on Bandita, didn't have to do much. Just shook the reins a few times and see you later. And it was really a professional, very impressive effort on debut. The other filly that I thought was very impressive was Asset Purchase for Chad Brown. Chad Brown's had a little bit of a quiet winter. A lot of his horses coming out of the Breeders' Cup have not run yet again. Horse like Blazing Sevens, for instance, hasn't run since then. But Asset Purchase, really nice horse, really nice filly. Didn't earn quite as high of a speed figure, only earned a 76 in debut. But here's the thing, that track at Aqueduct just is not really playing that fast, so maybe not all that surprising. Now, the other race that I want to talk a little bit about is the international race, the Stewards Cup. Go over to Hong Kong. And what do you got over there? Well, you have some great racing, obviously, with Golden 60 winning over Romantic Warrior and California Spangle. This is one of those big races that you just love to wake up to on a Sunday morning. Love when those races take place overnight. And just a huge win there for Golden 60 as he continues to rack up just an incredible career. Just like I said, the more you can get into international racing, the better off you're going to be. Great example of that too is Wednesday or Tuesday, I should say, at Newcastle, race one was going 2 miles. You got to look up the YouTube of this. If you go to Past the Wire, I think you can find it there. A couple of other Racing Post, I think, has it as well. Check it out. Jack Hyde, the horse, Jack Hyde, was run by his owner and rider, John Reddington, in a 2-mile race. And the clip picks up, and Jack Hyde is, and I'm not making this up, 50 lengths clear of the field. This is a horse that it was all tactical. The horse was headstrong and wanted to run, so they let the horse just go out there and run. And he went 50 lengths ahead of the rest of the field. It was truly incredible to watch. Ended up winning by 12 lengths, absolutely got tired at the end and was kind of almost trotting home. But he built up such a huge advantage early that nobody could beat him late. And so Jack Hyde winning an early race at Newcastle on a Tuesday morning, that was something else to see that. To see the replay of that and to see the video of it. But all credit to John Wellington, the owner and the rider. He knows his horse, and he rode that horse exactly the way that he needed to get ridden to win that race. So congrats to him. Now, I do want to shift to a little bit more of a serious story, and that is Repo Rocks, who won the Grade 3 toboggan over the weekend at Aqueduct. And while certainly always good to see a horse win a graded stakes race, it is still concerning because I think it shows a lot of issues that we have in the sport. Repo Rocks is a horse that took 11 races before he broke his maiden. And when you look at his career, he has been a decent starter allowance and allowance level horse. However, he also has not been a horse that places very often in stakes races. That changed under Juan Vasquez, his former trainer. Juan Vasquez, who I should remind you is suspended until 2025 for violations of performance-enhancing drugs for horses. Recently, Repo Rocks went to Jamie Ness. Now, Jamie Ness is a trainer who does not have a sterling reputation, has gotten his fair share of violations over the years at running at parks. I think anybody who covers parks, follows parks, knows the reputation of Mr. Ness and knows it well. Ness took over Repo Rocks 3 years ago, or 3 races ago, I should say. The horse saw a 50-point increase in his Equibase speed figure numbers overnight and has now run lights out for Jamie Ness 3 consecutive races, all 3 wins, now most recently the toboggan. This is concerning. This is a horse that went from one trainer who has been suspended from the sport for 3 years to another trainer who has a less than sterling reputation and who always has whispers about his barn. And at times like this, you don't even blame the trainers so much. I look at the ownership group because the ownership group made a decision to move Repo Rocks from one trainer who was not doing the right thing potentially to another. And so therefore I look at the owner Double B Racing Stables, and it's everybody on horse racing Twitter looked at that result and didn't come out and say it because you can't. It's unfounded accusations. You can't say, well, the horse is juiced. The horse is running on something. But you can make statements like, wow, that came out of nowhere. Huh. Quite a shipper for Jamie Ness. coming in from Aqueduct, coming in from Parks to run at Aqueduct and win that grade 3, something else. Everybody knows, everybody can read between the lines. These are the sorts of horses. I mean, as upset as we get about Bob Baffert, I understand that people are entrenched on both sides of that. What makes me sick? Jorge Navarro's, the Juan Vasquez's, the Jamie Nesses of the world, and the ownership groups that are okay with putting their horses in those barns. That's where we have a problem. That's where we have a really, really big problem. Now, there's also good news in the sport. And some of that news is the fact that we have seen increased participation on the handle, and Pegasus set a new record, actually, by just a little bit, but set a new handle record, $43.8 million. And there have been announcements that we're going to have 2 Pegasus days. Pegasus days. So 2 of them. One is going to be at Gulfstream Park. Another is going to be out at Santa Anita. That's going to be a lot of excitement. I'm really excited about that. Putting on big days in the sport. The more big days we can have, the more big purses we can have, the more horses that can run, the more you can attract owners and trainers to getting these horses entered. Really good quality fields. Excited about that. So very good news. Now, in trainer news, unfortunately, there is a lot of news about suspensions. Steve Asmussen is appealing a 30-day suspension for a drug violation, whereas Eric Reed has accepted a suspension for the usage of cream on a horse, and that cream, of course, remained in the system. Very similar to the suspension faced by Bob Baffert on Medina Spirit. Obviously, there's a little bit more of a history with Baffert there. And so a lot of people who are going, well, why is Eric Reed getting a slap on the wrist versus Bob Baffert? That's the reason. But Bob Baffert's also in the news because he has entered all 4 runners in the Robert S. Lewis Stakes. Newgate, Worcester, Arabian Lion, and Hard to Figure. All Bob Baffert horses, all entered. He had, in fact, had 14 of the 16 nominations for the race. This is the state of California racing right now. Now, that said, there's still exciting stuff coming up, okay? There's as much wrong as there might be with the sport, there's still exciting days in the sport. There's still great people in the sport. And when you see somebody like Bill Mott win on our collector, it reaffirms a lot of good things. Now, the upcoming week, we have a lot coming on. We got the Holy Bull. We got the Robert S. Lewis, and we got the Withers. We got 3 Kentucky Derby point prep races. Now, the Bob Lewis is not going to give out any points because all 4 runners are for Bob Baffert, and Bob Baffert cannot earn Kentucky Derby points. So only the Holy Bull and the Withers will actually be giving out points. Here's the thing, though. People have pointed out that the Holy Bull field has come up a little bit weak. Here's what I would say to that. Look at the undercard. Some really nice horses there. Tapit Trice, Shesterkin, Atomically, Mooncat, Cairo Consort. Some really interesting horses running on the undercard. Very excited for this Holy Bull card. Make sure to check out all of our coverage we have for that. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Win Play Show this week. I hope you enjoyed it. And make sure, again, to subscribe to Trusted Profits. Follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.